You're listening to the Kennel Confidential podcast brought to you by the United Treeing Feist Association. I'm your host, Davin Ramage.
I'm your co-host, Chad Wagoner.
Let's get into the episode. Here we go again with another episode of Kennel Confidential podcast. Chad, tonight we've got a guest that I think you may know a thing or two about.
I know a thing or two about a lot of people, but yeah, maybe this one I know a little bit more about.
Well, this is an episode that I've looked forward to doing for a little while now. You know, Chad and I have been talking about doing a Cedarwood Kennel Spotlight. It's the first Cedarwood Kennel Spotlight, which is kind of why I'm excited about doing it. I'm going to try to get this episode out before Christmas, but I'm not sure if I will or not. So just in case it comes out after Christmas, Merry belated Christmas to the listeners. We decided to do the Cedarwood Spotlight this month because our very own Chad Wagoner has had a birthday this past week. Are you willing to admit how old you turned, Chad?
Yeah, I don't care. I'm 47, and I've been pushing this podcast off for a while. I'm the least favorite person to talk about to me, but he's finally got me cornered, so I guess we'll do it anyway.
And unrehearsed. I shine a little light on your topics, but you don't know any of the questions.
Yeah, I'm used to having a little list here that Davin sends me, and I kindly follow along and elaborate and ask questions on. But I don't have nothing to look at tonight. I'm lost.
No show notes this time. And I have probably heard the answers to just about everything that I'm getting ready to ask you because I'm sure I've asked you all this stuff at least 5 times off the microphone. Let's just get into it, Chad.
Sounds good to me.
In the intro episode to the show when you and I kind of interviewed each other, we got just a little glimpse into the days that started Chad Wagoner into hunting dogs, but it really kind of stopped there. We didn't elaborate much, mainly because I knew this episode was coming in the back of my mind. But you did mention that before you got into Treeing Feist that you were into beagle dogs and rabbit hunting.
Yeah, probably somewhere around 02. I don't know. I'd kindly fought off the urge to have dogs up till then, and one day I was like, I think I'm gonna get some beagles. I've hunted with those before, so I ended up getting some grade dogs. Then I met probably the biggest mentor I've had in dogs, R.B. Sester, who had registered AKC beagles, and I got hooked up with him and got to field trialing some, and got to learn a little bit about registered dogs and the registrations and importance of bloodlines and importance of breeding, and so that was kind of my foundation into all of it. You know, at that time we lived in a little single wide trailer on Cedarwood Lane, so that's where Cedarwood Kennels got his name out, you know, that many years ago. And I had it in the beagles, and I kept it when I switched over to Feist. So there's a little history on the name, I guess.
I don't think I knew that. So how long did you run beagle dogs before you got into the more fun Treeing Feist?
Oh, I'd say 3 or 4 years. I liked running beagles. I liked hunting rabbits. You know, I've said before, the reason I got a Feist instead of a cur is why use a 60-pound dog what a 20-pound dog can do. And I guess I kind of use the same thought on beagles. Why hunt rabbits with dogs that you keep all year for 2 months out of the year when you can hunt squirrels with a dog you keep all year 6 months out of the year? That's kind of another reason why I got into squirrel dogs. And I competition hunted the beagles a little bit, and it really started getting that way, and really turned into you had to have 2 sets of dogs. You had to have a competition dog and pleasure hunting dogs. And I really didn't see the need in that, and I didn't care much for the way that program was going. So I wasn't going to keep dogs to competition hunt and then put them up and get a different set out to pleasure hunt. So
that's a whole lot of howling out back in the middle of the night too.
Oh yeah. And I ended up moving when I moved from Cedarwood Lane there. I moved next door to RB, and you know, there for a few years we kept, between me and him, we had 25 dogs all the time. Between, you know, his house and my house, and we live right next door to each other. So when the sirens went by, you know, you had another 30 minutes of sirens in the back door.
Well, you kind of hit on it then a little bit. So the beagle dogs did also carry the Cedarwood name on their papers.
Yes.
Okay. You were keeping the 25 dogs, so did you do any of your own breeding and crossing and experimenting, or were you using all Mr. RB's dogs?
Basically, it's extension off of his dogs. I ended up with all my dogs from him, and I talked to him about what would make good crosses, and what he was could suggest to do, and so I was just kind of an extension off of Indian Hills Kennel, which was his kennel name, and
So do you know if there's still Cedarwood Beagles floating around out there?
probably not. I didn't have I didn't have that many that carried my name, and I didn't breed that many. So, and that's been so long ago, they're probably all dead and gone by now. So, probably not.
You mentioned in that intro episode that you got into Feist around 2005. I guess that really only gave you about 3 years of Beagles there.
Yeah, probably, but those 3 years felt like 5 years because we run beagles like people run hounds. I mean, it was 6, 7 nights a week. I'd get off work, I'd get home, I'd eat supper, we'd load dogs, and then we'd run till anywhere between 11 at night to 1 o'clock in the morning because
Dang.
in the summertime it's hot and dew falls and rabbit dogs do good. We just sit on the tailgate and listen to them run. But yeah, we put in a lot of hours, a lot of days
Well,
with
I should
dogs.
probably throw a timeout in there too. A second ago, I said the more fun Treeing Feist. I don't. If there's any Beagle Dog listeners, don't throw dirt at me. I was just kidding. I'm sure Beagle Dogs are a lot of fun too.
They're a lot of fun, just in a different way. They're not as personable. You could about take a recliner out there in the field and kick back with a drink and listen to them run and have a good time.
Yeah, that doesn't sound too bad to me. So you got started in 2005, and you hit on that dog a little bit, but give us a story again when you were getting out of Beagles and deciding to make the switch to squirrel dogs, kind of how you came across your first dog.
Well, they kind of overlapped. I still done both of them for a while, but a preacher buddy of mine, me and his son worked together, and he had squirrel dogs of curs or some were elk hound curs mixed, and I talked to him a little bit about it, and I guess I'll back up a little bit. Back when I was probably 15, there was a guy that we rented a house off of that had Feist dogs. And I asked him, what kind of dogs are those? He said, Feist, we hunt squirrels with them. I said, why in the world would you need a dog to hunt squirrels with? So I guess I knew about them way back, but I just didn't know much about them. After talking to that preacher buddy of mine and a couple of years before, and it just hit me one day, I want a squirrel dog. So Squirrel Dog Central was about the only thing squirrel dog at that time. So I got on there, was looking, and a picture caught my eye, and Jason Wagler, who we talked about in the
Poor
Bog
Fort
Street
guy.
Fork
Yeah.
episode, had this listing on there, and he was in a training pen, and they wanted $500 for him, and way up Lagodi, Indiana. So I talked to my wife about it, loaded up, and it was cold. It was January. We went up there and got him, and lesson number one, I figured out real quick: a training pen for squirrel dogs and a training pen for beagles do two totally different things. RB had a training pen behind his house, about 5 acres. We'd stick beagles in there 2 or 3 days a week. When they got to running, we'd take them out and start killing rabbits to them. Well, that's not quite the case for squirrel dogs. I got this one out of the starting pen. He was treating squirrels a little bit, but I started taking him out in the wild, and it still took me 3 months or so before I actually got to kill some squirrels to him.
And that
Um,
was Cloud himself that you got from Jason Ragler, right?
yep. And Jason had named him Cloud. The only thing he had asked that if I would leave his name Cloud, and I said, "Yep, sure will." And that's what it was.
So was he Box Creek top and bottom?
Uh, no, he was Bog Creek on top, and he was Grayson on the bottom. He went back to Waller's little Jesse, which was a full brother to Cadillac Jack, who we did an episode on, and Pritchell's BH Mountain Sheba, which went back to the old BH Mountain Pistol Pete, who Danny C. Williams owned. So it was all Grayson Baldwin bred. I found out years later and actually got to meet him. Chad Poe from up around Lagodi is the one that actually bred that litter. He had Cloud's mom and dad, and Jason ended up with a pup out of him. So I guess that's where that breeding started at. So I went up there and got a dog off a picture. And the reason I bought him, we took him out. He said, "I'll take you out and let you see what he does. We'll do." And I said, "Okay." And so we went down the road and turned him out. He went running down the field, and it looked like the Garfield character Odie. He's running down through there, one ear sticking straight up, and the other one's bouncing up and down. And I thought that was pretty comical. So I made up my mind right then. I'm just going to buy him because he made me laugh a little bit. From there, it was a lot of learning, and I'm still learning, and I'm still doing it.
I hadn't been in it near as long as you, but if you're still learning, that means I got a long way to go. There was a time too, I think I found just doing some digging and reading, or maybe you told me, who knows anymore. Did you sell Cloud and then get him back, or something happened with him, didn't it?
Yeah, so I ended up deploying and went to Iraq. That was in '06. And I got home, I just kind of lost interest in about everything. One day I decided to just sell my dogs and posted him online on Squirrel Dog Central. A guy from, about 45 minutes away, he called me and said, "I'd like to try him." And so I met him over there, and we turned Cloud loose. And he made two or three trees and seen, two or three squirrels. And he said, "Well, I think I'm just going to buy him." I went home, and of course, on the way home, my stomach was turning. I was sick. I'd priced him, I'd sold him. I wasn't going to, go back on it. And about 8 months later, this guy calls me back, and he said, "I'm getting ready to go over the road truck driving. I'm not going to have time for a dog. Would you be interested in buying your dog back?" And I said, "I'm on my way." Didn't ask what he wanted for him or nothing. I was going back to get my dog back. So we met at the same place where I'd sold him, and Cloud was kind of a one-person dog, so he could be a little bit funny. So I didn't know what to expect. And he dropped the tailgate and opened the dog box, and I had a face full of Cloud. He was just licking me all over the place,
He
and
didn't forget you.
didn't forget me. And I was like, "Well, I want to make sure he'll tree a squirrel because, some people don't hunt the way others do, and you never know about dogs." We turned him loose. It wasn't 2 or 3 minutes. He had a squirrel treed. And that guy says, "Well, I kind of wondered if he'd ever do that again." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said he hadn't treated a squirrel for me since the day that I bought him from you.
Oh, jeez.
And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." He said he's never treated a squirrel with me and him out by ourselves.
Wow. And how long did he
So
have him?
about 8 months. Like I said, he was kind of a one-person dog. But through all this, I guess I'd again looking on Squirrel Dog Central, and I didn't know nothing about a tree dog. I'd coon hunted once, and I didn't like it. I found a club, Southeast Kentucky Treeing Feist Club, down in London, Kentucky. I was like, well, that'd give me a place once a month to go down and talk dogs and see different people and see different dogs. So that's how I got started in competition hunting, just kind of going down there learning. We ended up doing pretty good. He made Grand Squirrel Champion, and I think he was third, fourth, or fifth on the Dog of the Year list before I even knew there was a Dog of the Year list one year. So if I'd have known how to make Dog of the Year and there was a such thing as Dog of the Year, I might would have been able to make him Dog of the Year too.
How old is Cloud at this point once you granted him out?
Oh, what would he have been? Four, probably somewhere around there.
You lost him in a kennel accident, right?
Yeah, so I got to thinking about breeding Cloud. Looking through his pedigree, starting at the top, it was Boggs Creek, Poor Fort Bill bred to a Baldwin dog, and then the pup out of that they bred back to a Boggs Creek dog, and then it just kind of went in and out between Grayson, Baldwin, and Boggs Creek. So I got ready to breed him, and I was looking down through the bloodline. Of course, in Beagles, we always had a brood female back there that threw good pups, so I didn't know these fights were much different. I'd got to know Roy Smith from the club down there, and I asked Roy, I said, "I'm looking for a Boggs Creek female to breed Old Cloud to." I said, "You know anybody's got something like that?" And he said, "I got what you need." And I said, "You do?" And he said, "Yeah, all you got to do is come pick her up." And I said, "Well, will she hunt? Will she do anything?" He's like, "Oh, she'll tree, but she's gun shy." Said, "You get a gun out and she's gone." I said, "Well, okay, that ain't, that's a man-made problem, not a bred-in problem, so who cares?" And went and got her, and she come in heat and made that first cross. And
Who
I
was
had
she?
another male in the kennel while, Daisy was still in heat. those two got to fighting through the wire, and then one got in with the other and chewed old Cloud up so bad that I had to put him down, and that's how I lost him. And I've told this story a couple of times that I had my boys fed the dogs at the time, and I just lost all interest. And I told my wife, I said, well, when the pups are born, I'm going to sell the pups and give her away or do whatever with her, and I'm done with it and I'm out of it. She come in one day. She says, "Them pups been born yet?" And "Oh, I don't know. I ain't been out there." She said, "Well, when are they due?" And I looked and I said, "Well, it's due 5 days ago." So she went out and looked and she come back in. She said she had her pups. She said, "There's one little red pup out there." She said, "I don't care what you do with it, a house dog, yard dog. I don't care what you do with it. You're keeping it." And ended up being the only male in the litter, and that was Junior. So I figured since she told me I had to keep him, I was going to hunt him a little bit, and so that's what I guess kindly kept me going. And so, Davin, I do know how you feel. Got a dog going good, and then lose it and start all over again.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. I can definitely connect with you there, and it is good. I had my wife was the same way. Of course, and then I had you pushing me too, and I had made friends at the club, Joni and Jeff, and other people had said, "Well, we don't want to see you quit," and I know what it feels like to want to quit. And I, for about a month there, thought that I was going to quit. So it is good that to have someone kind of behind you or in your corner saying, "Don't quit," because I'm happy now that I didn't. But it is heavy. It's hard to lose them, especially when you lose them early and accidental. That answers one of my questions I had here. Then losing Senior in that kennel accident, the dog fight, that didn't have any major effect on the bloodline or Cedarwood as we know it today, I don't guess.
Now, once I got over the funk and was got Junior started and seen how he was coming along, and we just kind of picked up and kept going. And a lot of people always ask why was Junior's tail long, and that's the reason.
That's what I was
I
just
cut
thinking.
tails
That it was so because you normally cut them at 2 days, right?
2 to 3 days old, and it was 5 or better. It was too far along to cut tails then. I thought so. That's why he's got his tail.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. So Junior then is out. That was Boggs Creek Daisy, right? Wasn't that her name?
Moon's Boggs Creek Daisy. I never knew him. Carlton Moon had several Cedarwood dogs. I think he was in East Tennessee, so that's kind of where she'd come from. I guess originally before Roy had got her.
So Junior's the one that, well, Junior and Miss Sheila kind of pushed you out of that funk a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, they kindly worked on me.
How
You
long
know,
did
I,
it take Junior to start once you were out fooling with him and getting in the woods again? How old was he when he got started good?
well, he was born in November, so I didn't hunt him at all that first year because he was too young. He was actually 14 months old before he actually started. I started hunting him when the leaves come off about November of the next year, which put him at a year old,
That's
and he
that
started in January.
that's that patience bone that you have that I don't have. You know me, as soon as my dog can step over a stick, I'm ready to get in the woods and I expect something.
Well, I'll be honest. I didn't know if Junior was going to do anything or not. I had a squirrel tube, but he wouldn't bark a bit at a squirrel tube. He did one night. He barked good one night in a squirrel tube, and just didn't show a whole lot of interest there for the first you know little while. I took him out. I had a place down the road from where I used to live at. I took him out one night, and I didn't put a tracking collar on him because he never got that far anyway. He took off kind of to the right, and he was gone for a while. And I said, well, I guess I need to go find him. And I took one step, the way he took off, and he fell tree to the left. And that's the first tree he made. And I went down there, a big den tree, and it was almost dark. We left there and went straight to the house. And I'm thinking that was on a Monday. I left him up a day, and I took him back on a Wednesday, or I could be off on my days a little bit, but took him back. He made 5 trees, and I killed 5 squirrels that night.
Heck yeah.
And he never looked back. I mean, he started when he started. He was basically a finished dog from then on, really.
I was going to say, it's funny to hear you say now that you didn't know if he was ever going to make it because he definitely made it.
Oh yeah, he made it.
What were some of Junior's major accomplishments?
Uh, Well, he was 2016 NKC Dog of the Year, 2018 UKC World Champion. He was the first and second MFA King of the Hunt, Mountaineer Classic Champion the year they had it. Super Grand Squirrel Champion. He placed third in the National Treeing Feist Breeder Association World Hunt. So yeah, he had quite a bit that we did with him. Grand Squirrel Champion and UKC, and they had just started up. Well, matter of fact, Junior started in January of 15, and they had the first Feist days in October of 15, and that was his first competition hunt. I think we placed sixth in that, and he got King of the Hunt that year, that first year.
So you did all those accomplishments. I mean, those happened. Talking about 14 months, year and a half old to 2018. So you're what? You did all that in 3 years with a 3-year-old dog. Well, a
Yeah, he
3-year-old or
was.
younger.
Let's see. So he was born
I
in
guess.
14 and February of 18. So he was 4 when he won the World Hunt.
And did you campaign him long after the World Hunt?
No, I pretty well retired him because I had started seeing the pups that he was reproducing coming on pretty good. Then he won the World Hunt, and I mean he was 4. I'd lost Cloud when he was 6, so I kind of had that in the back of my mind too. And I didn't want to lose him, and of course now I feel bad about it. But I retired him, I put him up, and he really hasn't been hunted much at all since then.
And
I hunted
he's
him a little bit in 19, but not much.
he's 9 going on 10 now, I guess, right?
He's 10 now.
10,
Yep.
yeah, 10. Once he got going, after he had made those 4 trees in that week and you decided he was finished, did he have an it factor? Was there something about him that you decided this is the dog that I'm going to set as the foundation of my kennel?
Well,
Whether it was hunting style or size, mouth, personality.
I think he made that determination. I was hunting with Danny C. Williams a lot then, and Danny, he told me after he hunted with him first couple of times, he said he's a special type of dog. He's going to do a lot of things. And in the first feist days, there was 46 dogs, and I got drawed out with a couple of guys that morning. And I called Danny. Of course, I didn't know a lot of the competition hunters from around. I called Danny, and I was like, this dog, and this guy, and he's like, yeah, why? And well, I got drawed out with him. He said, just go ahead and withdraw your dog and come on home. You can't win. And ended up winning that cast. So that kind of made me feel good. And then just the more I took him, the more he got to winning. And Danny had talked to Mark Rowart from down in London. And Mark had 2 females, Stacy's Mini Pearl and BH Mountain Old Girl. And they were mother daughter. He called me. He's like, I wanna breed Mini Pearl to Junior. And I said, well, that's fine. Never been bred before, but we'll try it. He bred her, and then her mom come in heat. Old girl come in heat, and he said, well, I just want to bring her up and breed her too. And well, okay. So he came up and bred Mini Pearl, and then he came up and bred Old Girl. And Old Girl and Mini Pearl both were known to have 10 puppies every litter. So he called me. He said, I got to thinking about 20 puppies. He said, that's too much. He said, do you want to buy Old Girl? And I said, sure I do. I'll buy her. So I ended up buying Old Girl, but Mini Pearl ended up having 10 puppies. That was the first litter out of Junior. And that litter produced my doll female and produced Tonka and a little dog called Ellie Mae. A lot of people may have seen on the Kentucky Field with Steve Stacy hunting his hawk. But all them pups in that litter, all 10, made squirrel dogs. There's a little Jack's dog that was awful nice. Never did get competition hunted. That was the first litter. And then a few days later, Old Girl had 3 pups for me. So I kind of got the short end of the stick, I think. But out of those three pups. Cedarwood Daisy come out of that litter. There's an open, spot white dog that went to Lukenbach, Texas. And I haven't talked to that lady in years, but she called me. She said, "Well, we've got her retrieving doves out of a dove field."
Wow, that's pretty
Really?
cool.
Said, "Yeah." And then she called me a while later. "Well, we've got her tracking wounded deer in our at our deer ranch." What? And she called me back a little while later. "Well, we've got her treeing squirrels now." And I said, "Wait a minute, how do you do all this?" She said, "Well, she knows when we go to set up on the field, she's going to retrieve doves. She knows when we take her to the woods and leave the lead on, she's tracking deer. And when we take the lead off, she's treeing squirrels." So I thought that was pretty neat.
That is pretty wild. These fights, I mean, I don't know, they amaze me. That's pretty cool. Once
So
you had made that first cross, I guess, with Pearl, but those went back to Steve Stacy's house, and then you got old girl and her three. When all that was going on in your life, did you know that you were starting down the breeding journey that you have found yourself on now?
no,
so,
and
so you
no,
wasn't ready for it.
at that point I was dead set about. I was dead set against breeding. That wasn't something that I was wanting to do. Was never going to do, and didn't want to do.
That sounds like me. I hope my wife doesn't listen to this episode because that's what I tell her all the time. She
And
asked me the other day. She said I had made some comment about talking to you about breeding lemon and trying to figure out all these pedigrees, and she said, "You're going to breed lemon?" I said, "Well, I'm not in a hurry to do it, but if she makes a dog, when she gets old enough and needs to be retired or whatever, if I like her enough, I'm going to want one out of her." She kind of cut her eyes at me.
and I guess what got me onto the breeding part of it is Jerry Fears was into these dogs, back when Ed Wilder had, the Boggs Creek dogs and Jason and all them. He lived up there, and since then he had moved to Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And I was talking to him. We got talking quite a bit, and I was talking to him one day, and he said, "When are you going to start, really get your breeding program going?" I said, "I'm not." He said, "What do you mean you're not?" And I was like, "I don't have any intentions of doing all that." I said, I just don't want to do it." He said, and he's kind of matter of factly, and he said, "Well, you're being awful selfish, aren't you?" I said, "What do you mean I'm being selfish?" He said, "Well," and at that time we had, bred Junior a couple more times. And he said, "With the percentage of dogs that's making squirrel dogs out of Junior, why would you not want to put more of that blood out there?" He said, "And if you don't, you're being selfish with what you've got." So, and I got to thinking about that, and man, just kind of broke over. And I talked to my wife. I was like, "Well, what do you think about, if I get into the breeding aspect of these dogs?" And she said, "Well," she said, "I don't have anything to do with it." She said, "But I listened to you enough on the phone to know that you never want to get or too big that you don't know what you're producing." So that's kind of where we've kept it, with her blessing, and we've kind of kept it small, and still do a little bit. I know the females that I'm breeding, here at the house, I have studied out a little bit, but we just try to keep it small.
And you started down this journey with a crossover junior that you didn't quite know the path that you had set yourself on then. But another dog that we have to talk about out of the Cedarwood kennel would be Bo. Through your journey with Junior, once you got into your breeding and crossing, what female was it that led us to Bo?
Well, that's kind of a happen chance too, I guess. It's kind of a funny story, and
You weren't hanging out in the lumber
everything.
yard, were you?
No, no. Everything that's kind of happened with me and these dogs have kind of been just so happens it happened, I guess. I had kept old girl, and I'd crossed her. I made that cross for a second time, and one of those pups, I named her Lucy. Jerry Fears ended up getting her and named her Blondie. Fears Top Gun Blondie. Well, when I sold Blondie to Jerry, I told Jerry, I said, "Well, I'm gonna sell her to you. Here's the price, but also I want a pup out of her and this little dog called Davis's Little Roscoe." And I said, "That's the deal. I want, a pup and this much money for her." And he agreed. So Blondie ended up coming in heat and had litter pups. We bred her to Roscoe and had litter pups, and he had sent me pictures, and I picked this little pup out. And at the same time, he had bred a dog he had named Lily to Junior, and he had the litters all pretty close within a few days about the same time. Well, he called me one night and he said, "Well," he said, "I hate to tell you this." He said, "That pup that you were wanting," he said, "it died at 5 weeks old." He said, "Tell me which pup you want." He said, "They're all spoken for, and I'll call, the people and tell them what happened. That you get first pick, so you get their pup." No, no, I'm not going to make you do that. I said, "What about them pups out of Lily?" So he sent me a picture of the pups out of Lily, and there's a little red pup with a dark muzzle. Well, I'll just take him. He said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yeah, that'll make up for the pup that I didn't get out of Blondie." That ended up being Bo.
Oops.
So I drive down one night and pick him up and come home. And matter of fact, while I was down there before I picked him up, I asked Jerry, I said, "What do you take for Lily?" So when I went down to pick the puppy up, I just bought Lily too and brought her home. This was February or March. Still pretty cool outside. I told my wife, I said, "I'm gonna bring this pup in the house until it warms up a little bit. We're gonna put him out in the kennel. I worry about him getting too cold down there." So in true puppy fashion, we bring him in, put him in a little kennel, and he starts squalling all night. My wife finally gets tired of that. She goes, gets him, and puts him in bed. He goes underneath the blankets, curls up, goes to sleep. Well, he never left. So that's he still sleeps there today. So that was kind of the funny story on how I got him. So
And Bo's
if you're keeping track, I should never went to Indiana to get a pup that I didn't know nothing about. My wife got me to keep a pup that I was done with dogs, and then a pup died, so I ended up getting Bo. So none of these dogs that I've had, I ever should have had. I don't think.
that makes it even better to me. But of course, that doesn't happen to me. I don't know. Maybe it's too soon to tell. And so Bo's current age, I know I've asked you this 100 times. He's 7,
No, he'll be 6 in January.
and you've had quite a journey with Bo as well. I guess arguably as decorated or maybe more decorated than Junior, wouldn't you say?
Oh, he surpassed Junior a long time ago. Yeah, we've accomplished a lot with. The only thing that's eluded us so far is the world title. We've got two reserves, a third, two fourths, and a dead cast. So he's been in 5 world hunts, and if it wasn't for the dead cast, he's always been up in the, top five. Junior's been a blessing. Uh, I don't know that I'd want that blessing in another 10 years. I don't believe I'd be able to handle that kind of blessing in 10 years. But I've really enjoyed hunting. Like with Junior, we've gone everywhere. Several different states, and met a lot of good people with him.
Well, and you've told the story before on the YouTube interview at the World Hunt. When Bo got going, we'll say, he was, what'd you say, you didn't really take him out and do anything until he was 6 months old.
Yeah, I started walking around the park there when he was 6 months old. He finally treed a squirrel. I got a video of him. He treed a squirrel and it went right straight in the hole when he pulled up and treed on it. Done a good job. And that was middle of summer. He was 6 months old, and I took him home and just put him up. And I didn't get him out till that December. Really, I lived about 4 hours away, but I drove down to LBL and told my wife, I said, "I'm gonna go down with a couple of pups and just have a relaxing 2 or 3 days and hunt." And I'd brought Bo and Molly, and Molly was young then too. And I turned Molly loose first because I thought I had a better opportunity killing squirrels with her. Well, she treed three real quick. I shot out, and I thought, well, I'm gonna get Bo out. No sooner turned him out, he had one tree, and I shot it out, and then he had a den tree, and ended up, killing three to him that night. I killed my limit every day, that weekend to them two dogs, and I'd hunt one, kill three, and then get the other one out and kill three, and then I was kind of done for the day. But those two like to have killed me. And I was going to take a leisurely weekend.
And so that was the weekend that you knew that Bo was going to be that dog. Was that just the discovery moment?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. That and then a couple weekends after that, it was Junior had his attributes. I mean, I guess I skipped over that question a minute ago. I guess what made Junior that dog is he was not flashy. You turn him loose, he might go pee on 25 things before he ever goes and trees the first squirrel. But you know he's there. You'll know he's there right now. You look away, and then he's 200 yards tree. You don't even know how he got over there.
Mm-hmm.
Junior was that dog, and he was. There wasn't any babbling around. There wasn't any nonsense. He located a squirrel just effortlessly, and when he sat down, he was treed. A lot of hunts, and I guess I caught a little flack for this. A lot of hunts, he would honor another dog, and if you had a dog that would go in and babble around and not settle very fast, he'd go to that dog barking, and he'd sit down. And he located as soon as he got there. So there wasn't any guesswork of if he's going to tree or if he's going to have the squirrel. He wasn't, like I said, he wasn't fast. He wasn't flashy. He just got under a squirrel pretty often. Kind of what I said about old Bill. Bo, on the other hand, pretty flashy. He's got plenty of speed. He's got plenty of hunt. It doesn't matter, if it's raining or what. He's going to hunt. He don't locate as fast. As far as if there's been a squirrel on 2 or 3 trees, he's going to take a little bit. But he doesn't locate as fast as Junior, but he trees faster than Junior. What I'm saying, he's not going to be 10 minutes off this tree before he finds another tree.
Yeah.
It's going to be bam. If squirrels are down, it's pretty constant. Tree, 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 tree. I guess that's his big attributes. That he's got a lot more nose, and sometimes that's good, sometimes it's bad. But well, you've seen me frustrated from too much nose. You've seen it this morning.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing
But
about going out with Bo. There's not a lot of standing around and leaning time. You're pretty well walking, which is good. I mean, I get tired of standing around leaning with my pup. I like walking to him.
but no, I guess some of Bo's accomplishments. He was triple super grand in NKC, bench show and tree, dual grand in UKC, Hall of Fame UKC, dog of the year at NKC and UKC, Illinois state champion, Kentucky state champion. So yeah, he's done a lot. He's won Treeing Feist days, won United Mountain Feist days this past year as the first one we've had.
Did he win the Kentucky Classic this year?
Yeah.
I thought he did.
Treeing Feist days was our Achilles heel for many years. We finally got that one. But we had Treeing Feist days, and he couldn't do nothing at Treeing Feist days. It was just like, I don't know. That was like he was giving him a sleeping pill every time we had that hunt. I don't know what happened to him. But we finally broke that streak. He was the first squirrel dog in the UKC Hall of Fame, so that was
That's pretty cool. That's it. Yeah, we've talked about that a couple of times. That Hall of Fame tag on a dog is, to me, I don't have either Hall of Fame or a world title, and so I don't want to discount any world titles. But to me, that Hall of Fame tag is, if I had to pick, I think I'd rather have a Hall of Fame tag. That's a pretty cool tag to put on a dog. It shows a lot of dedication by a handler too. Do what?
It's not real easy to obtain either. And the UKC Dog of the Year is a big one for me too. I think you got to put the work in and do good all year, and then go to an elimination style, runoff to finish it off. So
with a lot of good dogs, a lot of good fights in that competition year after year.
Yeah, there is. That's getting stiffer every year. I think the first year it took 5 or 6 to get in the runoff, 5 or 6 cast wins throughout the year to get in the runoff, and I think this year it's going to take 14 cast wins to get into the runoff.
And staying with Dog of the Year, since we're on it, the tag for Cedarwood Kennels I've always thought was pretty cool. Champions producing champions. I've always thought that was a pretty cool tag. and it says a lot, and it's pretty accurate. Just some quick notes here that I made with very little research because I talk to you so much. um, but just some of the dogs to name quickly as far as champion dogs. I've got Molly, Doll, Sophie, Sally, Tonka, Sandy, and I'm sure there's plenty of them that I don't know. These are just the names that I see regularly since I've been in it 3 years or however long I've been in it, 4 years. Did I miss any big, as far as champions producing champions dogs that regularly find themselves on a dog of the year list or on a podium somewhere?
Well, back a few years ago, had Bo's full brother, Cedarwood Ace, two-time world bench champion, world tree champion, reserve world tree champion. He done a lot, and like I said, that was a full brother to Bo.
Did you have him?
Yep. I had him, and then I ended up selling him to James Ferguson. Yeah, Bo and Sally, Doll, Tonka, Chucky Murray got a hold of me through Steve Stacy. Steve Stacy used to own Stacy's Mini Pearl, and so Chucky got with me and was asking about a dog, and I had got Tonka back, and I said, I got a pup here that you might be interested in. Us. Come on down, I'll take you to the woods. He's not started, but I'll take you and show you what he'll do. So Chucky came down and took him to the woods, and little Tonka hunted like his butt was on fire, and he got up there and showed a little interest in one tree, and I kind of coaxed him on it. He barked a couple of times, and I shot to show him it wasn't gunshot, and he said, I'll take him. I've always wanted a squirrel dog. I said, Chucky, I said, I'm not selling you a squirrel dog. I'm selling you a Feist pup. Whether it becomes a squirrel dog is up to you. Well, he took that to heart and never looked back.
Yeah, he stays busy with him. And Anna and Sally's the same, and Dennis Wood has Sophie, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and they stay busy competing. Sandy's hugging that dog of the year list this year too, isn't she?
Sandy will be in the dog of the year, I believe, this year. But see, Tonka was a UKC dog of the year. He beat Bo 1 year to make dog of the year.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Congratulations to Chucky and Tonka on that.
And Sophie, I think, likes one cast win being in a Hall of Fame herself. I think Sally likes 12.
Yeah, Anna puts a lot of time in with Sally. She hunts her pretty hard.
So there's two more junior pups that are looking at the Hall of Fame title too.
Yeah, and then a look at and you had made a post too on the Cedarwood page or UTFA or both recently. But looking at the list again today, as of November 30th, there's 63 dogs on that list. I counted twice to make sure I didn't miss one. And of the 63, 12 of them go back to a Cedarwood kennel, which is giving you 19% of the list out of one kennel. That's pretty impressive to me. That says a lot about that champions producing champions tag. And 5 of the top 7 dogs, which will be in the UKC runoff, how they structure it, as of November 30th, also go back to Cedarwood. So that's 19% of the whole list, and then of that 19%, a bulk of them are at the top. Almost half of them are at the top of the list. So that to me says a whole lot and kind of puts the nuts and the bolts to the claim of champions producing champions. You do seem to be doing that.
Well, I like those numbers, and it does make me feel good. But what makes me feel even better is there's people out there actually willing to put time into dogs that, originated from me, I guess, that have put this much time and effort into their dogs and haul them up and down the road to do all this. I guess it humbles me quite a bit. It makes me feel pretty good.
Well, and to go along with champions producing champions, you and I have had plenty of conversations about breeding, and I don't know that I'll ever understand it like I should. But when your breeding is very thought out. You're somewhat of an encyclopedia of pedigrees, and you put a lot of time and thought into a cross before you make it. What characteristics of a dog or a cross do you give the most consideration to before you decide to make it?
I guess the number one factor to me is personality. Look is probably number two, and then ability. And before I get to those three, the pedigree has to be something that I like as well. I'll go through my reasoning because I know people are going to say you're picking personality and looks over ability. I don't like the dog's personality. I could care less about what it looks like because I'm not going to own it. If I like its personality and it's just an ugly dog, I'm not going to hunt it. So if it doesn't have a personality, I'm not going to get to the looks. If it doesn't have the looks, I'm not going to get to the ability. And that's just kind of the way it probably started out in beagles, because we wanted a good looking dog that would please us. RB instilled that into me way back when. So that's kind of what I look at. And as far as breeding, the big A, little A, big B, little B's, I don't know. I'm not even going to attempt to say that I understand
I don't
any
even
of
know what
that.
that is. That's Mandarin to me.
Well, when you look at genetics, it's A's and B's and big A's and big B's and little A's and little B's, and it's all over the place, and I don't understand a lot of that. What I think I have figured out, and I could be wrong, line breeding will always get you consistent. It can be consistently good or it can be consistently bad, but it will get consistent. It will double up on genetics. You can double up on the bads or you can double up on the goods. So that's why I say you can get real bad and real good, but it will be consistent. Your outcrosses will give you hybrid vigor, and you can get those world beaters. You can get, the world class dog out of those. If they have a litter of six, you might get one, you might get five duds that just absolutely will not do anything. But most of the time with line breeding, you're going to get six puppies. All six of them are going to do something real good or real bad. And that's where you really got to be careful with some of the line breeding as well.
Well, you just
Uh,
led me into my next 2 points. So you've hit on the pros of line breeding. What would you consider to be a con? What would be the ugly side of line breeding if there is one?
the ugly side, if you get too close too long, one thing we used to look at in beagles, you can't look at in feist because you dock tails. One of the first things genetic fault you will get is a crooked tail. That's normally the number one fault you'll get, or the first fault you'll get, as far as physical traits. Now, mental traits, if you start out with a somewhat shy dog and you start doubling up on that, you could get one that's real shy. One thing that I had in my line at one time, or still do, if I'm not careful doubling up, I will get a long haired pup. Somewhere back there, 6, 7 generations ago, there was probably a dog with long hair. And if I'm not careful with how I double up on that, I will bring that back to the top because somewhere I doubled up on that genetic. So that's some of the stuff you have to watch out for. You really have to pay attention, and you want to cull. Now I'm not saying that you have to cull by killing puppies. You can find them at homes or whatever, but you have to cull dogs. Yeah, you have to get them out of the breeding program, out of the bloodline, because you're looking for consistency, and you don't want to be consistently bad, is what I'm saying.
Right. Well, and then the next point that you led me to was outcrossing. When do you know? Two questions. When do you know it's time for an outcross? And when you decide I'm going for that outcross, it's time. What are you looking for when you're outcrossing?
Um, when you start getting, well, like when you start, like I do, I breed half brother, half sister together. The pups out of those crosses, in my opinion, need to be outcrossed. You need to bring some new genetics in, kind of mix it up a little bit, then go back to line breeding. You want to keep something in there fresh. What you look for is most of the time you're looking for one key thing. If you want a louder mouth, well, you want to breed to a dog with a louder mouth, of course, but at the same time, you want the other areas to complement. if you've got you're wanting to breed a female that's got just a sorry mouth, but she's got plenty of hunt, she can locate, she's got plenty of nose, she's got everything else you want except for mouth, you probably don't want to go breed to a male that's got a great big mouth but has a sorry nose and don't want to go hunting. The best case scenario would be every other trait be somewhat comparable and complement each other, and then you're trying to fix one little flaw that your line has. And every line has flaws. I don't care if it's my line or whose line it is, every line has flaws. A lot of in my opinion, a lot of your better breeders notices the flaws in their dogs, and that's what they try to fix with outcrosses.
So, what do you think your most successful or proven cross, if you could pick one out of Cedarwood? What is your most proven cross?
I don't believe in proving crosses.
Elaborate on that.
So if you take a male and a female and you breed them together 10 times and they have 10 pups every time, those genetics are going to line up 100 different ways. In order for me to say a proven line, those genetics would have to line up 100% exactly the same as they did on every previous litter. So let's take me, for instance. My mom and dad, they had me and they had my sister. That was not a proven cross. One, because I have a sister. If they would have been a proven cross, they would have made a twin of me just in a different, a different pregnancy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's why I say I don't believe in a proven cross.
Well, then which
Now,
one's most successful?
yeah, which one's most successful? I don't know if I can say any one stands out. There's been a lot of dogs um, out of a lot of different females. I put together a list several years ago, and I need to catch up on it. But I'll tell you what I'm talking about. And champion dog. I've got Cedarwood Lily, BH Mountain Old Girl, Stacy's Mini Pearl, Timber Creek Mandy, Smith's Kate, Barren Fork Bonnie, Fears Top Gun June. There's a lot of different females out there that has produced these good dogs. And I'm not going to be one of those people that says, I've got a great stud dog. That's the reason. Uh, it takes both. And I see it on Facebook all the time. Well, what adds more? I see that argument all the time. And me and a buddy of mine had the same argument one time. So we bred Junior to his female. And I already had Junior DNA'd. And I said, let's DNA the female and DNA every pup. I said, I want to see if the male or female puts more into them. So we did. We paid the money and DNA'd all of them. And one pup may be 70% junior, 30% the female. The next pup could be 80% the female and 20% junior. So it takes both. They're not going to line up. It's not 50-50. It can be 90-10. It can be 70-30. And that goes back to what I was saying a minute ago about proven crosses. I don't believe in proven crosses. I do believe in playing the odds, though. Everybody likes to play the odds. So if I breed this dog to this dog from past experience, odds are we're going to get all good pups. Now, the odds are that, but there's a few odds out there that says you're not going to get anything. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So who's across?
Who's the cross? I think as of right now, I think it would be Junior and Reba. I've made that cross more than probably any other dog.
That I
So I'd
thought
probably
you would
say,
say that for that reason, because it seems like you make that cross as often as possible.
well, and it's because everybody is called back liking them.
Yeah.
If
Well,
I
and my
had,
dog that got run over was out of that cross, and I really liked him.
if 40% of the people were calling me back saying, "Hey, we ain't having no luck out of these dogs," then I'm probably not going to make that cross again. I'm not looking at producing 1,000 pups and 100 making it because that's still only 10%. I'm not looking at 10%. I'm looking at, I'm not, it's never going to happen, but I'm looking at 100% if I can get it. And I'd say with Bo, It's bow and dull, right now. Of course, I'm liking this Molly pup that I got.
I was going to say that the jury's out on a Bow and Molly cross, I guess.
So I guess that's my feelings on breeding. And then I also get questions about how do you pick a pup? Well, I kind of pick a pup the same way. If I like the pedigree, then I'll go look at the puppies. Then I gotta like the personality and the look. And then if I like the personality and look, then I'm going to give them a chance. I'm gonna put them in the woods. And this pedigree I've got here tells me what that dog should do. It should show me the traits because I researched those pedigrees to see what the grandparents and all them back there. And if that dog shows that they do have the ability that that pedigree says they should, then I'm okay looking at putting them into the breeding program.
Well, that's taken us through the years of Cedarwood Kennels. Did I miss anything? Is there something you want to add?
I've had a lot of fun doing it, met a lot of people. Well, I wouldn't be talking to you if it wasn't for dogs. I wouldn't be living in Western Kentucky if it wasn't for dogs.
I'm at least glad you moved over here. It gives me a hunting buddy.
I mean, it's been fun. It's been aggravating at times. You do have those aggravating times, and why am I doing this times? But when you start looking back and all the good friends I've made and places I've got to go and see and all the places I've got to hunt, it makes it worth it.
Well, and one tidbit that I wanted to tap on, I didn't tell you in the pre-show when we were going over the topics here, but I do want to brag on you a little bit, Chad. I haven't known you all that long, 3 years, I guess. I'm losing track of when I got smoke from you, but I think it was 2021, I think. But I've spent a lot of time picking your brain and talking to you and hunting with you and podcasting with you. There's all kinds in the world out there. If you don't believe me, just get on Facebook. But just to brag on you for a minute, because you don't ever brag on yourself, the little bit of points that I've made notes on and I've discovered in the time that I've known you is that a few things that anybody could say about you that I don't think anybody could argue with is that I think you really probably are a true champion of the Feist breed, Treeing Feist breed. You've started multiple Treeing Feist or Feist organizations. What have you started? 3?
Well, I've started two and kind of had a hand in a third one. Yeah.
It's your loyalty to the purity of the Treeing Feist breed. I think says a lot about you and your kennel. Wanting to keep Feist in your kennel, purebred Feist, wanting to continue to breed to purebred Feist. When you outcross, you make sure that you're breeding to purebred Feist. To my knowledge, it's only female Feist that come to your house, right?
I made one cur cross with Junior. She was OMC cur. She was 17 and a half inches, 28 pounds, little small dog, a nice dog herself. I will say I'll never do that again. I did not like any of the outcome. I know there was a couple of pups that made pretty good dogs, but nose to the ground puppies, they didn't have the traits, they didn't have the look, they didn't have what I look for. So yeah, that I did that once, and it'll never happen again because I have learned since then if there's something in a feist that you need, you can get it in a feist. Kind of goes back to what Ed Bates said when we talked to him about jealousy and stuff, and that does play a factor in it a lot of times. That Davin's got a dog over there that's got a good mouth, and mine's got a sorry mouth, so I need a good mouth. But I'm not breeding to his dog because he's Davin and I'm Chad. It's just not going to happen. We got to put this stuff aside. We got to realize and get back to we are talking about dogs.
Mm-hmm.
We love them, we hate them sometimes, but when it comes to people and dogs, they are dogs. I guess a lot of the negative around them, I think, kind of needs to go away. But yes, as of now, if they're not feist, they don't get bred here.
Which
I
says a
said I
lot,
didn't.
because especially when you have dogs that succeed the way yours do, your phone starts ringing, I'm sure, from everybody. not just Feist people following you. I'm sure your phone starts ringing and people start to want a piece of that DNA, that bloodline, to not just take their check to the bank and go ahead and make the cross. It says a lot just to your, like I said, your loyalty to the Treeing Feist as a breed. And additionally, just a couple more things that I had jotted down here was the amount of travel, that you put in to support other clubs, and you put plenty of miles on your truck, pay entry fees and hotel rooms, and win, lose, or draw, you still drive up there and have a good time. Not a lot of people do that. I'm one of them. I'm not at a stage in my life where I can, and I got to get a dog up and going worth traveling with. But, you've competed in multiple registries, and I may miss one, but I think I've got them all here. You're definitely competing in UKC, as we know, but you've been in NKC hunts, you've been in ATFA hunts, and NSD hunts.
Yep, I hunted
Truck hunt,
at
didn't you?
USDC truck hunting.
Um,
Both registered 5 different ways, and I appreciate you saying all that you did. Um, I really do. And one thing I've always tried to be careful with is I keep what I try to do with the Feist and the Feist breed and the Feist organizations. I try to keep that and my kennel separate. I don't want anybody to ever think that UTFA is because of Cedarwood Kennel. What I do on the rules committee or breed standards, it has absolutely nothing to do with my kennel. It's for the Feist breed as a whole. If I've got a dog that gets too big, I'm not trying to change it to, well, let's go to 19 inches. I'm going to call that dog. You
I
know,
can vouch for you there because you got one in your house that is an absolute looker. And when I met him and said, "Who's this?" you said, "Oh, that's Loki." And I said, "How come I ain't never seen Loki before?" You said he's too big. So I will
yeah,
vouch for you there.
yeah. There was him. He's 20 or 21 inches tall, out of the same litter as a 14-inch dog.
Yeah.
So you know that stuff happens. You'll get a long-haired pup every now and then. You'll get a tall pup or pup that's too small, and yes, there is a Feist that's too small. It's under 12 inches. So you've got a cull. You can't put that stuff out there.
Another thing that I can definitely say about you, and I know a handful of others that would agree with me, is that I think as long as Chad feels like whoever he's talking to is trying with a dog, I feel like you make time to help anybody that's trying to help themselves or help them dogs or help their dogs, I should say. You may not answer the first time they call, but I've never known you to not try to get back, within that day or within 24 hours. And Lord knows I've got questions. and
Well, I guess I kind of get selfish on that a little bit. I love this sport. I love these dogs. That's why I push the breed standards so hard. That's why I push, the breed so hard and UKC so hard. And a lot of times that's why I answer so many questions because I don't want this sport to die. You know, if I'd have sold you a pup there 3 years ago and never answered your call again, you may have got that pup started. I got all kinds of faith that you would have, but I probably wouldn't ever seen you to hunt. And now you're coming to hunts. Now we're doing a podcast. So that helped the sport grow. And if I'd have never talked to you again after I sold that pup, you know, Davin wouldn't be here talking to people, So that's kind of the way I look at that too.
a lot of truth to that. Well, I bragged on you for your birthday, so that's what you get. But to bring it back around to Cedarwood, just to kind of to wrap us here before you tell us your favorite story, what is on the horizon for Cedarwood? What's coming down the pipeline?
Oh, shoot, I don't know. Hard decisions to make within the next year. I've got, Jake coming on. I've got, which is out of Junior and Clara. And then I've got Rascal coming on, which is out of Bo and Molly. And I like what both of those pups are doing right now. And, Bo's 6 years old almost. And he's starting to get a little wear and tear on him, I guess. I'll never do him like I did Junior. I'll never put him up. But I could see him being out of the limelight here before too awful long. and that's gonna just break my heart to be honest with you. We've spent a lot of time in the truck together.
Yeah.
He rides up front, and so I don't know what's in the pipeline.
Time will tell.
I don't know if we're gonna expand or um, dwindle. Who knows? I guess that's going to be up to a lot of factors. But I did have my tailgate redone today. It's got Junior and Bo both on there. I put a topper on my truck, so I took the back glass sticker off. So I done the tailgate,
And it looks
and
good. And so you've made a little bit of investment there into the future because if you were dwindling, you never would have wrapped that tailgate.
yeah, and a funny thing, they wrapped my tailgate, and they ended up having another one there that they had cut down a little short. It wasn't quite big enough for my tailgate,
Yeah.
and I drive a Ford, so I've got another tailgate decal, and I think a Dodge tailgate's a little bit smaller.
Uh,
So I could be expanding. If you know anybody that has a Dodge that needs a back.
uh, maybe Donald's listening.
Or maybe not a Dodge, but maybe a Ram. But no, I don't know. I don't, hopefully we keep going. Hopefully we have. Hopefully I can be blessed with another dog. That everybody says you get that one dog, that once in a lifetime dog. I've been fortunate to have three now.
Well, I'm
So I
getting
have.
where I believe that less and less. We said that to Ed Bates too, and good Lord, he had 7 coon dogs and a feist.
So will there be a fourth one? Who knows? Have I went through my quota of good dogs? I guess we'll know probably next year.
I don't imagine so. I don't see you going anywhere. If Rascal doesn't work out, you'll just try on the next pup, and then you'll be like me. You'll be in puppy Groundhog Day.
Mhm. Well, you mentioned Sandy a minute ago with Joseph Gardner. Joseph bred Sandy as a grand pup to Junior. He had told me, he said, I've got 16 names on the list. Of course, people back out all the time. But it popped up that he had one male left, and I called Joseph. I said, I think I might be interested in that male pup you got there. He said, well, I'm coming up there in January anyway. I'll bring it to you. So I know this year, next year, and probably the next year, I will be in a training phase. So Bo has spoiled me to not have to train pups for a while, but for the next couple of years, I'll be training dogs.
I hope mine's finished, and I hope that we just completely switch roles. That's my goal. Let you be in puppy phase for years. So you get a pup just in 2 or 3 weeks, January
Oh yeah.
5th to the 7th, right?
Yep.
All right. Well, hit us with that story because I don't even know what it is. You told me before we pushed record that you had a good one, so it might be the first time I've heard this one.
I don't know how funny it is. Some people think it's funny, but I was pretty upset. So I still had Cloud, and I was hunting like I said, down at Southeast Kentucky Cur and Feist Club, and I'd met Earl Reynolds. That was a gun that I had been wanting. I'd wanted one for a long time, and I finally got a 22 410 over and under. Walnut stock, had engravings on the side. Just a beautiful gun. The guy I haven't heard from in a long time, Byron Melton. He came up, and Earl came up, and we all went squirrel hunting one day, and Earl was hunting Rondo, and I was hunting Cloud, and we had killed 5 squirrels that morning. It was pretty warm. We turned, we made another drop and turned up this holler, and dogs fell in their tree, and we got in there, and I got a picture of a Cloud and Rondo on that tree, and Cloud sitting up in the fork of the tree. We shot the squirrel out, and I was packing this gun, and we just headed back to the truck. We were done for the day. Tripped over a stick, and my palm landed right in the receiver of that gun, the barrel on one log and the butt on the other log, and broke that thing slap in
Oh,
half. I was sick.
oh.
So went around and found a gunsmith to kind of get this thing braised back together, and it just never was the same. I didn't like it and ended up getting rid of it. But I guess not really a funny story, but a memorable story. And, that goes back to, the friendships that I've made. That was probably '08. So, me and Earl's known each other for right at 20 years, better part of 20 years. So, and I guess that story's kind of come up my mind with UMFA getting started, and we went up there to United Mountain Feist Days, Justin and them put on, and you had Earl was there, Chris Croucher was there, Chucky was there, and it was almost like a family reunion because, that old crowd, that crowd hadn't been together in a while, and everybody come back up. So, a lot of those stories that, and memories of Earl and Roy Smith and all that, kindly crept back up. So that was a story that kindly stood out.
Well, Chad, if I hadn't missed anything or anyone you want to thank.
A long list of people I want to thank. I'd hate to get started. I guess the two biggest influences and me with squirrel dogs would have to be Earl Reynolds and Roy Smith. So I have to thank them, and all the pups or all the people that's got pups from me, and all the people that has put the work into their pups for us to be able to talk about so many of the champion dogs. There's just so many people out there that I couldn't think of them all, and I'd hate to think that I forgot anybody. So I just want to thank everybody that's been a part of the Cedarwood Kennel, supporting and the time and all that.
Yeah, and just another quick note. Now that you've said that, I saw your post where you had said you were looking at a couple of crosses, and if anybody was interested, to reach out and let you know. So I went to that comment section. I saw dog names on there of crosses that I think I'm reading for the first time, and I'm not looking at them now, so I can't tell you which one. But that's pretty cool too. And you replied to somebody and said you didn't even have the dog anymore, but it's still pretty cool just to know that that guy's so proud of his pup that he wanted it again, even if it's 8 years later. I don't know how old his dog is, but even if it's 8 years later, it's pretty cool. To me, it would be flattering, to have people want to come back and get another piece of it. And I think after it looks like what is nearly 20 years of you breeding, you're going to have a hard time dwindling. There's a lot of people out there that like your dogs and like your crosses, and you're going to have a hard time dwindling. I think you have to turn your phone off or get a new number.
And that's the thing I've been fighting. I'm living down here in the 270 area code, area now, and I moved from an 859 area code. And people, why don't you get a new phone number? I've had this phone number for almost 30 years. And everybody that's ever dealt with dogs with me knows this phone number. I'm not changing it.
Yeah, you can't get rid of that.
But if anybody needs to get a hold of me, I am on Facebook, Cedarwood Kennel. So you can get me there, or my number is 859-613-3088. I don't mind talking dogs, so if anybody ever needs to get a hold of me for anything, just yell at me.
Cool. Well, I think I'm going to go feed a dog.
Sounds good. Well, it's been a good trip down this memory lane. I appreciate you taking me on it.
I'm glad we finally got you cornered to do it, and we held out for your birthday month. Everybody make sure you go on there and tell Chad happy belated birthday, too.
And if anybody feels like they want to just send me a birthday present, you call me on that number, and I'll give you my address.
I don't know.
Except for Cody. Don't be sending me no dadgum clock.
I was going to say, there's somebody that's going to want to send you a present, but you may not want it when you get it. All right, Chad. Well, thanks again. Hopefully everybody enjoyed it. Chad's line's one that's been around for a long time, and I tell him all the time that he's not on Facebook as much as he ought to be, probably. But it is a line of dogs that I certainly think that people will be talking about and breeding to and recognizing on pedigrees for a long time to come. So I'm glad that we finally got you cornered and got you to talk about it.
All right, thank you.